I'm Rob Skinner, and this is the Rob Skinner Podcast. Today on episode 72, I'm going to Corpus Christi, Texas, to talk to Nate and Waldina Bigbee. They're leading a small church in Corpus Christi and share how COVID has forced them to throw their nets on the other side of the boat. You'll learn about starting a Saturday morning church for men, how tennis may be a way to reach people, parking lot worship services, what 3 steps to help you to grow in your technical skills, and what to do if you sense God calling you to a mission planting or small church. That and more on the Rob Skinner Podcast. Welcome back to the Rob Skinner Podcast. My goal is to inspire you to live a no-regrets life, to make this life count, and to multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. I'm really excited about today's program because I'm interviewing Nate and Waldina Bigbee. And I've got a connection with Nate that goes back about 15 years. When I planted a church in Ashland, Oregon in 2004, 2005, I didn't have any kind of a campus presence. And at that time, the church was tiny. I mean, I think we had maybe 5 or 6 people. But there was a very small campus ministry in Ashland that had about 5,000 students. And I really needed some type of a person. While I worked in real estate full-time, I need someone to reach out on campus. And I don't even remember how I got into contact with Nate Bigbee, but he volunteered to come down for a very minimal wage over the summer. And through his outreach, he began a campus ministry at Southern Oregon University. And I remember taking a motorcycle ride with Nate, and we went up and took a ride up to the top of the campus and prayed over the campus. And it was just me and just Nate, and there were no students. And we prayed over that campus ministry. And it was amazing because over the coming 5, 6, 7 years that I was there, that campus ministry flourished. It was a tiny campus. And yet we had a campus ministry of so many college students. It was awesome. And he was the beginning. And I remember Nate, he would travel, he would walk back and forth to the campus. And he was all by himself, just one person. And I was so inspired by him and so grateful for him because he met a person named Amy Campbell, and Amy became a Christian, and her friend Sandra became Christians, and that was the genesis of our campus ministry. But it just started with one person. And from that day, I gave him the name Nate the Great Bigbee. And he's always in my spiritual hall of fame for his courage as a young man, going on campus with nobody there and starting something that did not exist. Truly an example of faith, and I'm so happy to talk to him and his beautiful wife, Waldina, here today. Nate and Waldina, great to have you on the program.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be on here.
It is awesome. I just have so many great memories. It was such a short summer that you were there, Nate. And yet it was so great. And I think there was some overlap. We had, I think Chris Schwarzenberger came a little bit later. There was a couple sisters that were there, and it was just so much fun. I remember there was a trampoline in our backyard. And I had 2 young boys at the time. They were like around 8 and 10, and they just thought you were amazing. And I remember you getting on the trampoline and just doing backflips, front flips.
Oh, I'm sure.
And we were like, oh my gosh, this guy is absolutely amazing. So Nate the great to have you here. And Waldina, so awesome to talk to you this morning. Thanks for making the time.
Oh, thank you.
Of course.
This is awesome.
Yeah, we're excited.
Well, let's go ahead and get started. And why don't you just share, how'd you guys become Christians?
Yeah, I'll share. So when I was in university, I went to school at Texas Lutheran University, and that's in a tiny little town called Seguin, Texas. It's not far from San Antonio. Yeah, so I was going there, and my best friend, my lifelong best friend, we've known each other since we were like 5 years old, had moved to San Antonio, and we had kind of lost touch over the years. And when I knew that I was moving to Seguin, I knew it was close to her. And so we ended up like kind of rekindling our friendship. And she was going out to campus events with our church. And so one of the days, I think I was staying the weekend over at her place, and she said, "Hey, Friday nights I go to this campus thing with this church, and do you want to come?" And I was like, "Sure." At that time, I was like deep in my sin, and I was already kind of starting to search for God. I had an amazing foundation with my mom and dad growing up, going to church pretty consistently. We would read our Bibles together. We would have family devotionals. But I went to college and did my own thing, and so at that time, I had kind of been through a lot of pain already, and I said, "Yes, let's go." And that's kind of like that. It was an amazing Devo that I went to. The sisters were so loving and so welcoming, and I immediately fell in love with the group. And so they asked me that night, "Hey, would you like to study the Bible?" And I was like, "Sure," kind of thinking like, I can teach you a few things. uh, and so yeah, we started studying the Bible, and I quickly realized, oh, I am not really a Christian. I am not really following what God really asked of me from His Word. And so I studied the Bible for about a year. So, but then in 2010, I got baptized, and I became a disciple. So yeah, it's all thanks to my friend Jessica Cavassa. She still lives in San Antonio. We both ended up getting baptized. So she's a very dear, special friend that I've known, since I was little. So yeah, that's my story in short.
Yeah, so I grew up Pentecostal actually, and was a goody two shoes growing up, and then high school kind of went my own way, and always told myself that I would get back to God when I was older. And that age kept getting older and older. I said, when I'm mature and I'm 14 years old, then I'll get back to God. 15 and 16, and that age just kept growing. And then when I got to college, I went to a party a couple of days before school started and realized this is pointless, it's worthless. I really need to get connected to God. And a disciple held the door open for my roommate going into the dorms. And the disciple invited my roommate out to Bible talk for the first time, and I went along with him. And we quickly started studying the Bible. And what I loved about the Bible studies was that we didn't work our way around the scriptures. It was straightforward. They expected me to follow them. They were following them. And that's really the thing that impressed me. Because growing up, there are all these difficult questions and we just kind of sideway, get around them and wouldn't really dig into some of the difficult questions about sin and repentance. And so that stood out to me. And then they had me do my own conversion Bible study. So they gave me all the scriptures and said, "You're going to teach the next Bible study." And so I went and looked at all these scriptures about salvation and conversion and baptism. And during my own personal Bible study, I had become convinced that I never became a Christian the right way, and came back and told them that, and then decided I needed to really repent and get baptized, and did that about 3 weeks later, and have been following God the rest of my life.
That's awesome. And that was at the University of Washington, is that right?
That's right, up in Seattle.
Okay, so
UW.
You went to school at Texas Lutheran and then University of Washington. Okay, that's kind of far apart. So how did you guys meet?
Well, I moved down to San Antonio to go into the full-time ministry. And then one year we decided to plant a campus ministry out at Texas Lutheran University where Waldina was at. And so I had been, I was out there and had been studying the Bible with a guy, and there was one disciple there already. And so we actually met for the first time in Waldina's dorms during a Bible talk. And so that was our first interaction.
Yeah, very first. I was not even like thinking about church. I had not, been connected to our church in San Antonio at all. This was like months before that ever even happened.
Right. So that was the last Bible talk of the year that we had there. And then, I wound up coming back to working more in San Antonio and not focusing on TLU. And about a year later, I was doing the singles ministry and the teen ministry. And so I went to Diana Wilkinson and said, hey, are there any sisters in the campus ministry that I should be looking out for who are maybe interested in ministry and that are awesome and, et cetera. And she said, yeah, there's this one sister, Waldina, but be careful because there's a lot of guys who are interested in her. And so, so I didn't want to be the like fourth guy in line after church. Hey, but then I found
unbeknownst to me, by the way, I'm just clueless, like living my, happy disciple life.
Anyway, so I found out she was out at Texas Lutheran University. And I was like, oh, okay, I have an in for a conversation. And so that's what we started talking about. And then we went on a date in Estes Park, Colorado at one of the ICMCs. And it was, an incredible date. We climbed a mountain and forged a river and had great spiritual conversation. And I texted Janet Florent that night and said, I found the one, you need to meet this girl. And a year later we were married right after the 2012 summit, actually.
Wow. Okay. So that spring when you were on Texas Lutheran, were you a Christian at that time, Waldina?
No, I was not. This was, what year was that? 2000, I think it was 2000.
10, right?
Well, I was baptized in 2010. So
either,
it must have been 2009.
Okay. So you guys met even before you became a Christian. Okay.
Yes, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's great.
We didn't know each other remotely. It was like one short conversation.
Yeah,
right.
It was not deep. It was like, hey, what are you doing in my dorm, like common area?
Right.
And he's like, we're doing this. You want to stay? And I ended up staying, and that was it. We didn't talk afterwards or anything.
Oh, okay, great. Well, Nate and Waldina, you guys were trained by Hervé and Janet Florent in San Antonio. Mm-hmm. I've had Hervé on the program before, and I just want to ask you, what three things stand out about their method of training? Like, what did you get from their discipling and their mentorship?
Yeah, that's a great question. Mm-hmm. One of the things I think I was shocked by when I first moved down, I moved to San Antonio to be trained for the full-time ministry and kind of was, trying to choose who I was going to be trained by, throughout. I had some potential offers in the Pacific Northwest, but really wanted to get trained by Hervé and Mike because of their training record. And when I got down there, what shocked me was, Hervé and I sat down and he said, okay, the nuts and bolts, the ins and outs of the ministry, you're going to learn those over time and you'll learn those from a lot of the other guys here. But what I really want to focus on with you is training in character. Because the truth is that it's going to get difficult again in the future. We'll have another 2003, 2004 timeframe. And it's your relationship with God and your character that's going to drive you through those times, not if you know how to lead the perfect Bible talk or Bible study or preach the perfect lesson. It'll be your character that really drives you through those. So that's one of the things that I got down there, was expecting to read books and, here's the 5-step program and the next this and the next that. And it was so much more about character and relationship than I had expected. So the character was huge, but then also he really walked with me. Every Tuesday night was time at the Florents and Hervé and Janet's house. And it would start at 5:00 and we'd sit down and we'd have a meal together with the family. And then after the meal was over, we'd go and we'd watch the basketball game, which a lot of times I fell asleep on the couch at that point in time. And then around 10:00 is when we would finally step into the office and we'd get into discipling and ministry and, deep conversation until midnight or 1 a.m. And so I had a solid 7+ hours every Tuesday to really not only learn the ministry from Hervé, but also about family and connection and life and dinner and hospitality and what all of those things looked like as well. So that was something that was incredibly valuable training for me. And then I think the other thing was huge that Mike and Hervé are both huge on is learning to lead multiple ministries at the same time and learn all the ministries at the same time, so that when eventually we would lead a church one day, we would have experience in all the different ministries. So I led the teen ministry for a while. I led campus ministry for a while, young professionals for quite some time. I worked with the middle school for a period of time, and then a region with adults. So, pretty much every ministry we've led for some period of time. And we always had a minimum, sometimes three, but we always had a minimum of either two ministries or a region on the side as well at the same time. And then Mike and Hervé's theory was always, hey, if you can learn to lead two ministries at the same time, then you can lead a church.
Right.
And so that was incredibly helpful and valuable training.
Awesome. Waldina? Okay. So when did you know, after all this training, when did you know that you were ready to lead your own church?
When we were asked to come and lead a church. I mean, truth be told, though, a point of readiness. I think, ready for quite some time, because we had just done so many different things in the ministry, and leading so many different areas. Ready to lead, a lot of it was less about did I feel ready and a lot more about were we called? And to me, that's when, if God was calling, we were going to do whatever God said. And I don't know that I ever felt like, yeah, now I'm ready and I've arrived at this point where it's time to go lead a church. I don't think that was never a thought that hit my brain. We had been trained for a while, we got appointed, and then, leading multiple ministries. But I think being called is what was really, that's when it was like, okay, it's real. It's time for us to go out on this limb and do something new, get out of our comfort zone and do something different.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we were really comfortable where we were at. We had, I just bought a new house. We were excited about it. Our kids were happy. We were happy. We loved our neighborhood, starting to build friendships with our neighbors, and just was so comfortable. And then all of a sudden it was like, bam, Corpus Christi. And it was definitely a leap of faith, because again, we had been just so comfortable, and we were like, why would we want to leave this comfort? But I think coming down here and visiting, it was so clear that God was like, just take the leap, take a leap of faith, just take it, you can do it. But yeah, I also did not feel, oh yeah, I'm ready to lead a church. It's definitely, all right, God, you got us.
Right. Well, one thing that I see is that there's a lot of large churches that they're heavily resourced, a lot of money and support. And so many people that are your age, in their 30s, are there on staff, working multiple zones or regions. And, when I became a Christian, a lot of those people got sent out, to mission plantings. What do you see as some of the big differences between leading multiple ministries in a large established church versus leading a small church that's not as resourced, and you've only got 30 people in your church and you've got to do it all?
Yeah. I mean, part of what you said, even in your question, is the answer. You have to do it all, right? So, we've got 30 people in the church. And so there's a lot of responsibility. In a larger church, you have, like you said, you have a ton of resources. You can delegate a lot. There's help everywhere you look, and there's a lot of structure in many of those churches already. And I think for me, coming and leading a church, the structure disappears and you have to build it for the first time, or rebuild it if someone has already, planted the church before you. And, it just reminds me of what Paul said about wanting to, plant on no other foundation than that of Jesus Christ. And so for me, it was really a refresh, I think, in a lot of ways. And coming down here and kind of, okay, now it's all on you, and you have to build from the ground up, and you have to trust in God, and it's 100% on faith, and go and do it. That was a very different experience for me. And it really to be honest, it ignited a flame in me that I hadn't felt in a long time. That was really beneficial for my faith. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's hard and it's way more, I mean, in some regards, it's a lot more work than what I was doing before, because I have to pick up all the nuts and bolts and learn all the different things that I had people doing in our ministry. And, I think in a lot of ways, to me at least, I have to supplement the structure that we had with faith, which is so important for all of us. And feel like, man, that's something I really gained coming down here, is a refreshed and renewed faith in God.
That's awesome.
I'd add that I think something that, we didn't necessarily do a lot of in San Antonio and that we're doing here is just using everybody, like anybody who has a willing heart to help and serve, like, all right, come on in, like, what can you do? How can you help? How can you serve? And so I think that's been really encouraging, just to see the hearts of the disciples here, to just, hey, if you guys need anything, what can we do? I want to serve people that maybe hadn't done anything before. And so I think really saying yes and giving them even if it's a small job, like pick up the cables, for Sunday mornings, or and just really utilizing the serving hearts and really, like, giving them a task, giving them a job.
That's awesome. Well, now, can you tell us a little bit about the city of Corpus Christi, Texas, and the church?
Yeah, totally. So Corpus is about 300,000 population. It's a beach town. It's on the coast of Texas, on the Gulf Coast. Yeah. And it's about 63% Hispanic, extremely religious community. I mean, a lot of people say there's a church on every block. There are like 5 churches on every block here in Corpus.
Yeah. Actually, like that, yeah.
So tons of churches. I mean, there's a Church of Christ up the road, down the road. There's a Catholic church there. There's a mega church. It's just, it's crazy. So there's churches all over the place. But, it's an incredible city. We love it, and we love being here. The men was something when we first got down here, we couldn't meet together. We met with each of the couples in the church, but then we really got heavily locked down. And so we had to do a questionnaire with everybody. So we did this 14-part church health questionnaire. And one of the things that we found, and that the previous leaders had told us, was that with the men in the church, it was very difficult to convert them, because they either, when you study the Bible with them, they either had a major lack of character, or they were really stubborn and didn't want to, confront a lot of the sin in their lives. So it was definitely, it's a different experience in a lot of ways with the type of people here, but at the same time, God wants everyone to become Christians. So we love it.
It definitely is like a family feel also, it's a small city, but everybody is so connected. I've met people that are like, oh, I'll say, oh, do you know so-and-so? Oh yeah, of course I know so-and-so. And, that aren't a part of our church, just, people that we've met, that everybody's just really connected. And the church is amazing. I know I shared about them already. They're loving, they're unified, they're so serving to one another. And it's been really refreshing to be a part of a group that is just so excited and really wanting to reach the city. So yeah, the church is small. We have 29 disciples currently. But yeah, they're a lot of fun, and we've been so encouraged by them, and they've welcomed us with wide open arms, so sweet and kind, and we're really loving the city. Yeah, it's so small. There's one of everything, which, coming from San Antonio, where there's like a Target on every corner and a Walmart on every corner, there's one Target, one TJ Maxx. There's no Costco. But surprisingly, we've loved it. At first, I was like, I don't know if we're gonna like it. It's so tiny, but the first day we moved, it felt like home, and we're loving the city. It's beautiful.
Well, okay. When did you guys arrive in Corpus?
Yeah, we got here in the beginning of June, so June 1st, I think it was.
So you guys took over right in the middle of COVID.
Yes.
Okay, so what's been your strategy? I mean, like, what in that situation? What was your mindset? Can you describe? Okay, what was your plan?
Good question.
Yeah.
So, most everyone's advice was get to know the church, get to know the church, get to know the church.
Yeah.
And we're sitting here going, how do we get to know, how do you build relationships with people over a screen?
Yeah.
We got together with every couple once right before everything really locked down for us here in Corpus. And so we had to do a lot of different methods than what we're used to when you jump into a ministry and get to know people. So one of the major focuses when we first got down here was really a massive push in the multimedia, internet, like everyone was doing, but on a small church level. So we really had to, the big focus became, okay, how can we transition and shift? And to me, the theme for kind of 2020 and even 2021 was from John 21, throw your nets on the other side of the boat, right? They had been focused, fishing all night long on one side, and that was trying to transition and do something different. And I feel like that's what we really had to do coming to Corpus, is relearn a lot of the things, a lot of the core fundamentals still stay the same, but a lot of the methods have to change during quarantine. And I think even during, our current age, we just have to transition and do things differently than we have in the past in a lot of ways.
Okay. So can you dig a little deeper? Like, what do you mean by that? Like, what are you doing differently than prior to that?
Totally. So, at first, so we came down here, I decided, the church really wants, I heard that they really wanted to start streaming services. So, but there's little resources. So I sold all my records, I sold my record player and a couple other hobbies and some woodworking and stuff we didn't need anymore around the house when we were moving, and bought a decently nice camera, and then jumped into learning photography and videography. So I just spent a ton of time before we left learning how to use it and learning what to do with it, so that when we came down here, we'd be ready to go and set up. And the cool thing about a small church or live streaming in general is that a lot of times you have no idea what the size of the church is through a camera. There's very little times when people turn around and pan and see the rest of the crowd. So if we could recreate and make a really good looking production, then that's something that, you wouldn't know if it was a mega church or a small church, and would be attractive to anybody coming in. So we started the live streaming. We came in, I connected with Christian Ray Flores, and we did a rebranding of the church logo and kind of some of the colors and all of that kind of stuff. So I looked up all the major churches in Corpus Christi, figured out what was popular, what was working here, and then transitioned and created a new brand logo and all that kind of stuff for our church. We had Christian and another sister that helped me out from San Antonio, did a whole new website, trying to do the same thing, come in and making it as modern as we can, and use things that others have found that are really helpful in order to do that. And then we started pushing with social media, and we started, from that survey and figuring out, okay, we need to help men out. We started a church for men on Saturdays. That was, I started going through the church and interviewing all the guys in the church on Saturday mornings. And it's a quick 30-minute little lesson, short for guys. At first we started by playing like sports bloopers and stuff in the beginning. And then we moved on and just had like interaction with the guys. And so I'll usually ask them to prepare a 5 to 10-minute lesson for men. And then I interview and dig in and kind of ask them questions moving forward. And so right off the bat, we got a couple of Bible studies that came from doing that. And so, we really just having to jump into a bunch of virtual stuff. Even, I can't stand personally social media. I've been off of social media for like 4 or 5 years. And there's like my last Facebook post was like from 4 years ago before quarantine started. But the truth is that, we've got to go to where the people are. And right now everyone's on Instagram, everyone's on Facebook. So learned how to be successful with an Instagram account. Called a buddy of mine in the church who's done a phenomenal job at it, and kind of started things off, got them going, found someone in the church who was eager and passionate about it. And then once we got it up and rolling, transitioned, handed that ball off. And so now we have an Instagram account that's up and running and, gets worked on a weekly basis. So Yeah.
I think the little like motto that we have been saying since the beginning of all this is it's not about like what we like or if we're into social media or not. It's about what's going to help. And so, because a lot of us don't do social media, a lot of us don't like Instagram, a lot of us don't like Facebook, but it's not really about whether you like it or not. It's about really trying to reach where people are at right now. You can't just go to the coffee shop and say, hey, let's, have some coffee. It's about online. And I think that's something that we've said a lot. It's not about what we like, it's about what's going to work, and really trying to get out of our comfort zone and do the things that are hopefully, going to work.
Yeah. So we came in, learned the church through the questionnaire, really tried to get to know the leaders really well. And then, once we did that, try to learn the city the best we can and what's working for all the other religious groups around us, obviously without compromising any of our own convictions or teachings, and then digging in and trying to put as much of that stuff online. And then the other area we tried to tackle, we found out that outdoor sports are having some of the lowest transition rates of anything. So we've got, with COVID. So we've got parents that have their kids in softball and nobody on the softball team is getting it, even though they're practicing and all that kind of stuff. So we found, so a part of the Church for Men is once a month, we go and do something together. There's guys. So we'll go fish, play disc golf, or something else that's outdoors that we can still social distance, but build relationship. Because the truth is that people are so eager right now for interaction with other human beings. And so it's, if you can do something that's outdoors and socially distanced and safe, then that's an area where we're getting people out. And especially Waldina started kind of doing this tennis thing, and that has exploded and led to so many amazing interactions that have just blown our minds.
Yeah, I started, I played a little bit of tennis in high school, and then but never touched a racket since, 2008. But one of the sisters here, I can't remember how she got involved in tennis. And one day, with the spirit of trying to meet new people and reach out to this one woman that she was reaching out, she said, hey, would you come play tennis with me and join this little fast track tennis lesson thing? And I was like, oh, okay, it's not about me, it's about meeting people. And so I said, sure. And so I went, and that's been the beginning of this massive watering hole that we have found. And so from there, I became friends with the tennis director, started meeting a ton of different people that regularly go play tennis, have gotten a ton of numbers, have gotten a Bible study out of it. Hopefully more to come. I just jumped in November, I think, is when I started all of this. But that has been such a really cool focus of mine personally, is okay, go be a part of these tennis groups, get numbers, build friendships, build relationships. And that has been, there's been a lot of really cool things that have come out of it. It's been really encouraging, and I'm just praying and begging God that some fruit will come out of that.
That's so cool. Okay, so what you're saying there is that organized sports have been down in the attendance, but people are still wanting to get outside. So you've taken advantage of that. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's
safe.
All of these different things, and it's a lot safer than meeting at a coffee shop or a restaurant or anything like that. And people, they want the interaction, and a lot of people are open to doing things outdoors. The tennis thing has been amazing. We've gotten on the local news because of it through one of the connections there, telling people about how to raise money for Hope Worldwide in Honduras. The women have been able to go out to a Dave and Buster's on a consistent basis because the manager is a tennis person, and hooked them up with all sorts of stuff. We're excited. We were supposed to do it in December. We get to sponsor a tennis clinic, which just means we're doing the advertisement for it.
Yeah.
We get to sponsor it, and then we're going to have this tennis clinic that we get to invite a bunch of people to for free.
Yeah.
It's going to be a ton of fun. So
it's not normally for free, but he was just so kind and just so open, and was like, sure, we'll do something like that. Bring all your people over. So that's been really encouraging. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Okay, so the tennis program is going great. Anything else that's working for you in this new environment?
So there's a lot of stuff we're excited about that's coming up. I mean, all of the online stuff has been very helpful for us. We've seen people come out through that. I think, it's interesting. This is obviously everything's different reaching out right now, and reaching out the way, even especially here in a place that's so saturated with churches. And, it seems like everybody already goes or has a home church. We've really had to shift gears in the way that, we reach out when we are out and about. So, just inviting somebody to church doesn't work as well as it would in, maybe a big city where it, or a city that doesn't have as many churches, at least, that drives a lot of conversation.
Oh, okay, so let's drill down a little bit on that, because I think that's a good question. I think there's a lot of church leaders they've got at least some basic form of online video work going. They're getting their message out there. How do you convert those people watching into Bible studies? Like, how are you? And how do you invite people to church in this current environment? How do you take that next step? Of course, people they're projecting, but how do you move from just kind of passively waiting to actually converting those into Bible studies and people who are coming into the church?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question right now, right? Everybody wants to know okay, we're doing online stuff, but how do we convert it? I think one of the things, I think I'll more directly answer the question in a minute. But I think a lot of it is that, we've got to stop looking for quick results. And because we don't have years of this stuff going on. Most of us don't. I think that, some of the churches that have been doing this for a long time and have a massive following, a big base, when everything transitioned, it was easy for them to, transition and start grabbing people. But for those of us who are just getting started, it's going to take a little bit of time. And, whether it's podcasts or blogs or Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, live stream, website updates, there's a ton of different avenues to pursue right now, but they take time to get a consistent following to where, you've actually got people who consistently watch you. And you're right, before someone would live stream and they'd watch 2 or 3 live streams to check out and test your church to build that trust, right? And then from there, they would come out and you could meet them at the door. But now there's no door for, many places. None of that's working. I think, for us, one of the things that's been helpful is doing parking lot services. And so one of the brothers has a trailer, and we pull the trailer up and put some cinder blocks under it. And one of the sisters decorates it, and that's our little stage. And we got an FM transmitter so that the cars can listen. And so that's a cool way where people can come and check things out, but still feel 100% safe. And, that's been super successful and helpful. Facebook ads has been helpful and successful for us, where we've been able to, for like 10, 15 bucks, you can reach 2,000 or 3,000 people. And your ad comes up, you can market to the exact type of person that you're looking for. So for Church for Men, we're able to hone in on men in this age group from this circle around the city, and hone into that. So that's been helpful. And then I think the biggest thing is, and this was true even before COVID, is having a follow-up team, people who are paying attention and then responding back to people and making that personal, real connection afterwards. And that's difficult. To me, that's the hardest part of all of this social media, is making those personal connections. And so for us, I put out there, I put up a little thing, hey, if you need prayer or anything like that at all, please go ahead and email us. And so the guy emailed, and I said, would you like to pray over the phone? And he said, yes. And so then we prayed over the phone. And then I said, hey, I've got, a Bible study series that I think would really help you out with all the things that you've got going on in your life. And, he had recently been divorced, and his kids were estranged from him, and he had lost his job, and, great guy, but just had all this crazy life happen to him. And so we were able to start studying the Bible from, just those one step, next step, next step. And one of the biggest things I think is, a lot of times we want an immediate response when we post something. So we post an event and we want people to come out to it. But in this type of marketing, the online marketing, so much of it is about providing real content. And then once people trust the content that you're putting out there, then they reach out and want to purchase, so to speak, what you're providing. And so, I've done a ton of research and tried to learn as much as I can about all this YouTube and online marketing. And the rule of thumb is 80% content, 20% invitation to participate, purchase whatever you're selling. 80% that you're giving and only 20% that you're asking people to sign up, join us, come on out, that type of a thing. So, which is tough, but
Right.
that's what's working.
Okay. So this is super helpful, Nate and Waldina. I really appreciate it. Love what you guys are doing. Now let's, we've got people listening all over the world, small churches. And, like me, I faced a challenge where I go, okay, where do I start? I mean, there's like you mentioned, there are so many social media platforms. There are so many ways to get out there. And there's such a race to try to catch up and to try to get the message out there. What advice would you give? Like, if you could give like step 1, 2, 3, where do you focus? Like, where, there's times I just go, I can't do all of that. So where could I start? Where do I start? Where can I get focused initially to get the message out there?
Yeah. I think getting a website that looks good is your first step. It's kind of that's what people, and I would have given the same advice 1 year ago before all this happened. The current generation and the way that trends are going, when somebody comes out to church, you have to build trust with people. And that's a commodity that's less and less in our day and age. And the first place that people will normally go to is a church website. They hear your name, you reach out to them, and they go, okay. And unless you've built a long-standing relationship with them already, if you're trying to, reach a lot of people quickly, they're going to go to your website and see what it looks like. And if it looks like it was from the 90s, they're not going to want to come out to church. And so I think the first step is getting a website that matches your community, that looks similar to, what's going on around you, and getting that built. And then the second thing, I think step 2 is really getting moving on Facebook. All of the other platforms are they have their own space and niche, but Facebook, you can actually do almost all of the other things on Facebook, right? Facebook and Instagram are owned. Instagram is owned by Facebook. And so if you get going on Facebook, you can also just post on Instagram if you want to. More people are on Facebook really than any other platform. You can put your videos up on Facebook from a phone super easily. And so it's kind of this catch-all. You can do advertisements on there. You can do, you can post what's coming up for the week. You can do live prayers on there. You can do so many different things through Facebook that's just so beneficial and helpful. And then from there, I'd go to YouTube and start posting your videos up on YouTube, because Facebook, although you can post things on Facebook for your live videos or whatnot, it's not a good spot to go and find them all for somebody who wants to kind of backtrack and see what you're all about. YouTube allows you to do that. It's all videos on one spot. You can see the sermons and the titles and what the church is about and who's speaking and, the worship and all that in one spot. And so that's the next, step I would go after that.
Yeah, I think one thing that I've realized that Nate has done a lot of also is ask a ton of questions to the people that maybe were already excelling in this or quickly started excelling in this during COVID and before COVID. He was on the phone, Zoom calls with people getting advice, phone calls with people getting advice, constantly just trying to learn from YouTube videos on even how to go about all of this. We were like, like he said, he's not super active on social media. So he's like, what are stories and how do I use those? And what are they for? And so YouTube has a lot of really great resources on, how to use the stories for your church and how to be able to reach, people through Instagram or through Facebook. And I think that's something I really appreciate about you, honey, is that he just got on the phone and asked a ton of questions, did a lot of learning for himself, because this isn't it's not something that we've known forever. It's something that Nate has really learned when COVID started last year, was asking a ton of questions. So I think that's something that, can be really helpful too, is look around and see what churches around you have already started and kind of gotten their foot on the ground and starting then asking tons of questions. Okay, how do I get started with the Instagram or even the website? Because that can be overwhelming too. Like, how do I do a website? Just ask a lot of questions. And I think people have been very willing and to help.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Like you said that you sold everything, you bought a camera and you really got into videography and learning there. For the person who's listening, is like, oh boy, where do I start? Let's talk about equipment. Okay. What, for the person who's now filming it on their iPhone, where would you say to go in terms of just the equipment to try to develop the quality of their service, and any advice on equipment?
Yeah, so that's a big topic. The first thing I'd say is, for all of this social media, all of the online stuff, the streaming, one of the best resources I found is a guy named Brady Shearer. And he does a bunch of YouTube videos. And so he has a video about what are the 5 best cheap cameras under $1,000 for your church for live streaming, and what type of equipment do you need for audio. And he's got everything. They even have a website, and they can build it for you. They have the best giving platform I've seen so far, which is Rebel Give, which takes pretty much nothing away from the giver. They set it up directly, so it's bank to bank, and so you don't lose any percentage when you're giving, which I know a lot of churches are concerned about. And even if they do choose the credit card option, it's only 2%, and it's automatically taken out off of the top. So they've got a ton of incredible resources. I mean, with everything, I don't agree with everything that he puts out there, but he's a really solid resource, practical. But if you're asking me,
can you spell that name out? Brady, I'm sorry.
And then it's Shearer, Shearer.
Shearer. Okay, Brady Shearer. He's got his own website. Yeah. Is that on YouTube or? Both?
It's on. A lot of his stuff is on YouTube. Pro Church Tools is the name of the company or the brand that he works with.
Okay, great.
And I mean, literally from coming up to your title, how to build a website from scratch, what type of everything that you can think of or have questions about, he's got an answer to it that's fairly decent.
Yeah, and easy to follow. Like, I'm not good at all this stuff either, but I could watch a video, press pause, do exactly what he's saying, and like step by step. It's very practical.
Any other books or resources that you could guide us to, direct us to, that have been helpful for you?
There's not a whole, I haven't seen any books on this topic. I think the other person that I've really started paying attention to and watching is Travis. Let's see, how do you say his last name? Travis Alberton or Albrighton. He's a disciple out in Florida, and he does the Practical Christian podcast. Oh, yes. And he has a bunch of incredible, he's been doing it for, I think, since 2018. So he's got 3 years of content. He just came out with a new course on digital media and how to start a profitable digital media for people who are in the ministry or who aren't and want to get started on something like that. So, if you look up the Practical Christian podcast, all of his stuff can get linked through there. So he's got some great courses online that are super helpful, and
that's fantastic
for people to dig into. So
what have you found that you've tried, that you've used in the past, but is not working for you now?
That is a great question. Normal, again, because of the amount of people that already, claim to be Christians here in Corpus, just inviting people out to church isn't really working right now. And so one of the things, when I was up in Seattle, I got to have quite a few discipling times with Scott Green. And one of the things Scott said is that for religious people, you have to find something that you have that they don't, and highlight an aspect of Jesus that they don't have. And that's how you help someone who's religious become a Christian. So, even we were on a date last night. We finally got a babysitter, got to go on a date, which was so exciting. And so even talking to, the waiter there, I was talking about, I focus on training up men, and tried to hit some things that maybe the church that he goes to already, which he does go to a church, one of the mega ones just up the road from us, doesn't have set up for him, or something that's appealing to him that he's not finding where he's currently at. So I think our normal way of just reaching out to a lot of people here has not really worked. Again, the quick results is something that hasn't worked. We're in a saturated market right now. Everyone's live streaming. Everyone's doing all the things that should be working in a normal time frame. And then, like we talked about already too, the follow up to online services is something that we're still struggling with. We're still trying to figure out how to make that connection with, we see how many people watch or whatever, but how in the world do you make that connection to somebody? And, the live chat is helpful, those types of things. But I think our standard way of reaching people, just with tons of different invites face to face, that's not really been working right now. And we've really had to amp up our game and present things that sound different and appealing to a lot of different people.
That's super helpful. Now, one of the things I'm excited about is we're planting a church in Flagstaff, Arizona. And so, I've got a real heart for mission plantings and small churches. And I think there are people probably listening thinking, I'd love to go on a mission team, whether they're married or single or whatever. Can you share a little bit about the process of coming from a large church, San Antonio, to Corpus? What did you see? What did you experience? How did it affect your relationship with God? And what advice you'd give to people that are considering maybe going to a smaller church?
That is a great question. I think, our story is really a Jonah type of a story when it comes to coming down here, unfortunately, but at the same time, that's kind of how it went. We had just bought, so in September of 2019, we had just gotten a new house. Our old house, we couldn't have events inside. We had a big backyard, but we'd get rained out frequently. And so we were really praying for a bigger place. So we got this killer deal on a 3,300 square foot home where we could host our ministry at a massive backyard with like 8 different types of fruit trees. There was a green belt behind it. There was a Lowe's and a Target. So it was dangerous for us at the same time. I mean, it's exactly what we had always wanted. And so we got advice, and we were ready to stay there for the next 5 to 10 years and had these like cool dreams and plans. And that was in September. And then, it was great gated pool thing for the kiddos. That was in September. We got home from Christmas break on January the 6th. And Hervé and Janet said, "Hey, we want to get with you tomorrow." And we got in at midnight, and we're like, okay, like we're just getting in at midnight, and normally we were exhausted, and normally they'll like, "Oh, okay, no problem." They said, "Okay, great. So can we get together at noon?" Like, okay, something's up. So they asked us, "Hey, we're excited about 2020 for you guys, and we wanted to see what you think about moving to Corpus Christi and leading the church." And so my response was, "Do you want me to think about it and have a godly answer for you in a day or two? Or do you want my gut reaction right now?" And so they said, "How about both? We'll have, right now and in a couple of days." And so, I mean, there were so many reasons I didn't want to. This house was awesome. How are we going to sell the house? We had only had it for 3 months at this point in time. So there's no way we could have turned around and sold it without going into debt. It was a large house, so it wasn't good for rent to rent out. I personally hate the beach, which is a strong word, and I use it accurately. I don't like the beach. I never have. I always get sunburned wherever I go, redhead, and I get sunburned. I don't like the sand. I don't like the smell of the salt water or the ocean. I mean, it it's just, I love the mountains and rivers and lakes. That's me. But the beach, I don't
Not a
like it.
fan.
Not a fan of it. We came to visit and it was like dreary. It's more expensive here, so we weren't sure what type of a house we were going to get. Our kids had just made some really great best friendships in the church there. And then, of course, we had no idea that COVID was looming right around the corner as well. So we had all these reasons that wouldn't work. I think Waldina can share about how we felt once we continued to pray and fast about it.
Yeah, so before we made our decision, yes or no, we came, that's the least we could do. It's a 2-hour drive from San Antonio. And we came, and it was very rainy and dreary and dark. And we were just driving around the city, and I'm looking kind of like at one of those dramatic like music video scenes where I'm just looking out the window and I just start crying. It's not pretty here. It was like tons of potholes, and it was, I don't need to go into those details, but it was really sad, like driving around here and thinking, okay, God, like there was something inside of me that knew, like every inch of my body was like, you don't want to, I don't want to come. This is my dream home. We had so many fun plans of like updating it. And we, had like, 20 something events with our ministry in the house, in the backyard. Like it was an amazing home, loved our neighborhood. And then we're moving here where we have no idea where we're going to live. It's not pretty. Nate hates the beach. I'm not a fan of the beach either. And so every part of my body was like, don't do it. But my spirit, like every part of like the spiritual side of me was like, okay, there's nothing holding me back spiritually. Like I felt like it was, that scripture that talks about if you just have, faith size of a mustard seed, God can move those mountains. And that's kind of how we felt. Like God quickly started moving all of these mountains that we thought like, well, there's no chance of us being able to, sell this house. So maybe that'll be it, but anyway, so it was this like tiny, tiny size of faith that we just had to take. And this leap that was so scary, and God completely blew it out of the water. And I think, yeah.
So they asked us in January, the move date was April. And so we really only had 2 or 3 weeks to decide before they kind of needed to know an answer, because they would need to search for somebody else. And so it was quick. So called a lot of people that I trusted, got input from them about what they thought, and, basically shoot down all my worldly responses to this, please, and help me look at this spiritually. And, fasted about it, prayed. And we're just convinced that this is the direction God had for us. And what's crazy is that as soon as we decided that we were going to come down here and we gave them the heads up, it's like God had all these dominoes ready, and all of our fears and all of our worries, one by one, went right out the window. Yeah. It was phenomenal. These people that we love and trust in our ministry said, hey, we want to rent your house for the next year. We'll pay you whatever you need to make it work. And they still get to have ministry events at our house, which is why we bought it in the first place. We didn't know how we were going to afford a decent, spot for us and the kids here. We came down, and there's this, incredible house that was $400 out of our price bracket for a rental. And the realtor came back and said, hey, I talked to the owners, and they were willing to drop the price $400 a month for you guys so that you can live here.
Wow.
Stuff like that just didn't make sense. There were way more kids down here than we realized. And so our kids were able to build quick friendships. And so, I think to answer your question, the big thing is going on a mission planting, it's a leap of faith and it's a call from God. And if God is calling, you can't resist that call. You have to go. And as soon as you decide to do it, God is going to make all of those pieces fall in place, or at least that's what he did for us. And I believe that's what he'll do for other people as well.
Absolutely.
Let me talk to you for a second, Waldina. One of the challenges that people face, I think two things in going from a larger church to a smaller church is, one, will I have friends? And I think that it particularly hits millennials. There's more of a like, hey, who's my friend group? And two, what about my kids? those are two big fears. Can you talk a little bit about what's happened since you've gone to Corpus?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, those two, amongst other things, have been such a faith building part in my walk with God. Just, like God has just, it's been amazing to see him work with that. So, I think coming down, yeah, it's definitely scary. We didn't know anybody here. We did not know a soul here. We didn't have any friendships. We didn't have any relationships. But I think, particularly for the church here, the sisters have just been so welcoming and so loving. And I think, it being a group of people that are strong in their faith and have come down with the goal to seek and save the lost here. These sisters are strong, and so they've been very, very much like, hey, we want to be a shoulder that you can cry on. Like, please ask us whatever you need, we want to be here. And then I think something that's been encouraging is they love our kids too, and they want to take care of our babies, and they want to they're not quite babies anymore, I guess a little bit. They're 5 and 3, but I have quite a few sisters that just, our kids love them, and they're older, but our kids love them because they're sweet and giving, and they kind of, pay attention to them. And I think, one of the biggest prayers that I had was, God, please let there be some children. Because we didn't know. We really knew very little of what we were walking into when we said yes. So I had no idea whether there were going to be little kids or not, other, young parents. And I think that was something that, because of our leap of faith, God was like, yep, here you go. And so there's a really nice little group of little kids here that they get along so well with. And the community, I think, it's just, they're very much like, you guys are our family. So we will take care of all of you, all 4 of you. So I think that's been very encouraging. Yeah, I would say a lot of faith. 'Cause, that's my personal experience. Is I didn't come down knowing that there was going to be this amazing group of women. I had hoped and I had prayed, right? But that we're going to really wrap their arms around our family. And I think God completely blew that out of the water.
Wow.
It's been way more than what I could ever even have hoped for, what I imagined. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. As you know from Ashland, the small family that you get in a small church, or the closeness and the unity, makes up for the lack of programs and ministries in a larger congregation.
Right.
So our children don't need a children's ministry because they have so many relationships that are incredible and deep and family oriented.
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate the time. What parting shot, what advice would you give to someone who wants to live a no regrets life, who really wants to make a difference and make this life count?
Yeah, that is a great question. Rob, I think coming down to Ashland that summer was so helpful for me, and even set me up for this jump as well. I don't know if you knew this, but I was initially supposed to go to Missoula, Montana that summer, and was so excited. My girlfriend and I were supposed to go there together, and that got canceled last minute. And so initially I had a tough time with the concept of Ashland as well, but prayed about it, got my heart about it, and was so excited. And so I think the first thing is jump out and go visit a place or spend somewhere for 2 weeks, get out of your current environment. And then to make the final leap, you've just got to stop being comfortable. It's so comfort in the US is such a huge focus and achievement for many. And comfort is really the opposite of a church planting. You have to get out of your comfort zone. And honestly, that's one of the best things for our faith. So if someone's thinking about going on a mission team, write out a list of the pros and cons. And I think what you'll find is that most of the cons are worldly responses that don't really matter in the long run. And it's so worth it to jump on a small mission team, a group, and your faith will just be exploded from there. It's so incredible.
Yes, I think that, we say that a lot, right? That's something that I hear a lot. Get out of your get out of your comfort zone. Like we say that a lot. I've heard that. But I think this was like, now that we've done this, I feel like I've never done anything this much out of my comfort zone. And so I would say that, yeah, definitely visit. And if there's even a tiny bit of the Holy Spirit, like pulling at your heart that, I do need to do this, or a little part of me wants to do this, but I'm scared. I would say, we fasted, we prayed, we got a ton of advice, and just go for it. That's what I would say, because we did everything. I feel like practically was kind of holding us back, our home, our friends, everything in San Antonio. There was really no like real reason to come except for God. And I think that's something that God totally rewarded is and I said this to everybody and I prayed this, God, I am only doing this for you. Like there is no other reason. There's nobody that I'm doing this for. There's not for myself. I want to stay here in my beautiful home, but I'm only doing this for you, God. And I think God has completely just like astonished me in how much my faith has grown and all the amazing things that, we have here now, and people and the relationships and all of these cool things that are happening. And I just think my faith has never been, just stretched. And my faith in God is just like, wow, like just seeing him have all of these things happen right before my eyes. It's been a while since I've seen, very clearly God work in my life like this. But I don't think it would have happened if I wouldn't have said, all right, let's go, let's do it. So I would say, jump out, a leap of faith.
That's fantastic. Nate and Waldina, thank you so much for being on the program today. It's great to have you guys.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you so much.
It's been an honor.
Now, if someone were wanting to follow up with this, getting more information, I mean, you guys brought up so much practical help, or maybe they're interested in Corpus Christi, how would they reach you?
Yeah, you can go to our website at www.gc3.church. And GC3 is how we rebranded. It's Gulf Coast Christian Church. And so that's the easiest way. There's a form on there, email, or you can email me directly at nate.bigbee@gmail.com. And Bigbee is spelled Bigbee.
We have a cool little video that we made that's fun and funny and kind of shows a little bit more visually what the church and what the city looks like.
Yeah,
so
an invitation to move.
Doing that.
Yeah, invitation to move here. We still need more people to come help us spread the word here in Corpus.
Terrific. Well, I'll go ahead and include that in my notes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
And I want to thank you today for listening to the Rob Skinner podcast. My goal is to help you, to inspire you to make this life count, live a no regrets life, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. If you're enjoying this podcast, let me ask you a favor. Let your friends know about it and how to find it. Tell your church friends and spread the word. Have a great day and make this life count.